States America will sacrifice in WW3 4:16 a.m. Your phone vibrates once, then goes silent. The power blinks, returns, blinks again, then dies hard. Outside, the neighborhood is frozen in a gray stillness. No porch lights, no traffic hum, no distant HVAC fans. The air feels wrong, like pressure before a storm. Then the sirens start, not one, but layers, city sirens, campus sirens. The long mechanical howl that means you are not supposed to be outside. You look at the dark window and realize the glass is now a liability. As the world holds its breath, where will you be when the grid goes down? In that instant, the old world doesn't end with fire. It ends with silence, and the silence spreads. A crawl begins on battery TV, the only screen still alive in your house. The anchor's face is calm in the way people look when they are following a script. They repeat the same phrase 3 times. National security event. Do not travel. Await instructions. They never say who did what. They never say where. They never say how bad. The camera cuts to a podium shot with no speaker, yet an empty seal, a row of microphones waiting like teeth. You refresh your phone and the apps refuse to load. You try cellular data and it's there, but thin, one bar that lies. You feel your pulse in your fingertips. The first casualty of World War III is not a city, it is certainty. You always imagined sacrifice as a map with red circles. That idea is comforting because circles have edges. Real planning doesn't use circles, it uses functions. A war planner doesn't look at the skyline and feel drama. A war planner looks at what lets a nation see, decide, move, and keep fighting. They look for the nervous system. They look for fuel. They look for the switchboards of command. They look for the warehouses that turn steel into sustained combat. And when those functions are concentrated in certain places, those places become pressure points. Not because the land deserves it, but because the system depends on it. The trigger arrives as a cascade, not a headline. First, the satellites that watch for launch plumes begin throwing conflicting alerts. Heat signatures appear where there should be ocean cold. Then the ground radars start tracking objects that do not behave like aircraft. The tracks climb too fast. The arcs bend too clean. In secure rooms, the words come out in clipped phrases. Multiple tracks, possible hypersonic, confidence rising. DEFCON protocols move like a machine because that machine was built for minutes. The National Military Command Center requests verification from a second sensor net. A third net confirms, enough to shift posture. The clock becomes a weapon. On your street, the public still doesn't know any of that. People know their lights are out. People know their phone calls won't connect. People know the gas station sign is dark and the grocery doors are locked. Parents are still in pajamas, trying to interpret a siren as if it is weather. Denial is immediate and practical. It sounds like jokes. It sounds like power company again. It sounds like this. Happened last summer. It sounds like the human brain trying to protect itself from scale. You stand in the kitchen with a dead microwave clock and realize modern timekeeping is a grid service. Even the minutes feel rented. Within the first 10 minutes, the information gap becomes a hazard by itself. Local radio stations lose their automated feeds because their internet backhaul dies. Some stations stay up on generators, but they have no verified content. They fill the air with speculation, caller reports, nervous laughter. Social media becomes a swarm of screenshots that can't be confirmed. Old maps return. Fake target lists spread because they look official. The most dangerous content is not the obviously insane. It is the almost plausible. Information at this moment is poison disguised as clarity, and the dose is your attention. In command circles, the concept of sacrifice has a cold meaning. It means you cannot protect everything at once. You cannot intercept every inbound. You cannot keep every runway open. You cannot keep every port flowing. You cannot keep every power substation alive. Hard choices are built into the physics. Missile defense is layered but limited. Interceptors are finite. Coverage is not a blanket, it is a patchwork. Leaders don't choose who to save because they hate places. They choose because some functions must survive to prevent total collapse. And survival at the national level can look like abandonment at the local level. The states that feel sacrificed are often the ones carrying heavy hardware of deterrence. Places where strategic aircraft sit on alert. Places where missile fields are spread across plains. Places where submarine support quietly happens behind fences and shipyard cranes. Places where the communications backbone is hardened and buried. Those locations are valuable in a way that attracts violence. They are not soft targets. They are priority targets because hitting them changes what the opponent believes you can still do. Deterrence is a conversation held with capability, and in World War III, that conversation becomes screaming. You watch the first official statement arrive through a text alert that loads late, like a message from another universe. It says nothing and everything. Nationwide emergency. Remain sheltered. Limit communications. Stand by. You feel how thin the language is. They are buying time. They are trying to prevent millions of independent decisions from clogging roads, hospitals, and networks. They know what panic does. Panic turns a survivable disruption into a self-inflicted catastrophe. You understand the logic, and you still hate it, because vague guidance feels like betrayal. Phase I ends when the first visible consequence hits your block. It is not a blast, it is an absence. The water pressure drops because pumping stations need power. Toilets refill slowly. The faucet sputters and spits air. You realize how quickly a house becomes a container without services. The refrigerator is a cooler with a deadline. The stove is a metal box with no gas if the line pressure fails. The house is not a fortress. It is a habit, and habits break fast. In this hour, the most dangerous mistake is movement without a plan. Phase 2 begins with the breakdown of money. Card readers fail because networks fail. ATMs display error codes or blank screens. People stand in lines anyway because line standing is how humans pretend there is still a system. A rumor runs through town that cash is about to be suspended. That rumor is nonsense, and it still moves bodies like a command. Bodies become crowds. Crowds become friction. Friction becomes fights. The first violence you see is not political. It is logistical. It happens at a gas station with dark pumps where two men argue over who was next. Gas stations lock down because the pumps require power and the payment systems require authorization. Even stations with generators ration their fuel because they have no idea when resupply comes. Tanker trucks don't move on schedule when routing software fails and dispatch can't coordinate. A normal supply chain is a timed dance. World War III turns it into a blind crawl. You smell exhaust as people idle their cars in place, keeping the heater running, charging phones, waiting for nothing. Every engine running is fuel turning into heat and regret. Cell towers overload. That's always part of the story, but this time it's different because the backhaul is impaired. Towers can have power and still be useless if their fiber roots are cut or jammed. People don't understand backhaul. They understand bars on a screen. They see one bar and keep calling. They see no bar and drive to find bar. Roads clog with seekers. The highways become slow rivers of panic, flowing toward imagined safety. And imagined safety is always somewhere else. In the first 12 hours, hospitals become both sanctuary and trap. Emergency rooms fill with real injuries and fear injuries, chest pains, asthma flares, people who skipped medication because pharmacies can't verify insurance. Nurses become bouncers and triage becomes morality under fluorescent lights. Ambulances take longer because intersections are dead and traffic lights are black. A city without signals is a city negotiating every crossing. That negotiation costs minutes. Minutes become lives. Somewhere far away, actual strikes happen. You might never see them, but you feel their echo in the grid. A high-voltage transformer station is hit, and the region loses its stable frequency. The grid is an enormous synchronized machine. It doesn't fail politely. It fails in cascades. Protective relays trip to prevent damage, but tripping creates imbalance. The imbalance trips more relays. In a minute, a whole interconnection can split into islands. Islands without enough generation go dark. Your town goes dark not because it was important, but because it was attached to something that was. Now the phrase sacrifice states starts circulating like a sickness. People name places they think are doomed. They point at states with bases, shipyards, missile fields, radar arrays, refineries, rail hubs. They speak as if the government is trading human beings like chess pieces. They need a villain they can picture. The truth is colder. The government isn't trading lives for strategy. Strategy is the structure inside which lives are exposed. And the exposure is uneven because infrastructure is uneven. The military value of a place is not the same as its population. A rural county with hardened facilities can be more strategically relevant than a dense downtown. A quiet coastline with submarine support can matter more than a famous tourist city. A desert test range can be the reason a state appears in an adversary's targeting package. This is why the idea of safe states is mostly fantasy. Safety is not geography. Safety is distance from function, and in a modern system function is everywhere. You decide to act like the first hour matters, because it does. You pick one interior room, away from windows. You move shoes there, because broken glass turns bare feet into casualties. You bring water, because water is time. You bring a flashlight, not candles, because fire after a shock is how houses die. You gather your medications and put them in a bag you can carry. You charge power banks while you still can, then you stop, because chasing battery percentage becomes another kind of panic. Outside you hear the first gunshot. It is distant. It might be a car backfiring. It might be a man firing into the air because he wants to feel in control. Either way, your body reacts the same. This is how societies slide, not with one dramatic moment, but with a growing chorus of small signals that say the rules are thinning. You look at your neighbor's house and see candlelight flicker. You know that candlelight is comfort and also risk. In a blackout, fire calls fire departments that may not arrive. By day 2, the country begins dividing into pockets of different reality. Some cities have power because they are connected to surviving generation. Some towns have water because their pumps are on local backup. Some counties have functional law enforcement presence. Others don't. Prepared households move into routines. Unprepared households move into scavenging. This is not because people are bad. It is because hunger erases civility faster than ideology. When a child is crying and a fridge is warm, morality becomes negotiable. The invisible threat becomes the loudest. If there were nuclear detonations, the fallout is not a movie cloud that politely stays put. Fallout is weather riding on wind. It is particles that settle on roofs and fields and cars. It is rain that becomes a solvent for fear. Without reliable updates, people misread the sky. They think dust is ash. They think fog is gas. They think every headache is radiation. In this vacuum, rumors kill. People evacuate into worse areas because a stranger posted a map. The federal response becomes a choreography of scarcity. National Guard units are mobilized, but movement is complicated. Fuel allocation becomes a security issue. Convoys require escorts because desperate drivers try to siphon. Bridges become choke points. Ports tighten, not only from attack risk, but from sabotage fear. Rail junctions become strategic because rail moves heavy fuel and food more efficiently than trucks. When those junctions are disrupted, the grocery stores don't empty from shortage first. They empty from fear first. Fear is faster than any supply chain. You begin to understand what sacrifice looks like on the ground. It looks like delayed help. It looks like a region waiting for repairs that never come because crews are redirected. It looks like hospitals told to operate on backup for a week because priority parts are sent elsewhere. It looks like a town losing its only fuel depot because it was designated for military logistics. It looks like roads left uncleared because resources are protecting an airbase corridor. It is not a declaration. It is an absence of service justified by function. On day 3, you hear the first heavy aircraft overhead, low and fast. You can't see it. The sky is overcast. But you feel it in your chest. That means air operations are active somewhere nearby. And air operations require fuel, munitions, runways, and command links. If your region hosts that chain, you are near a nerve. Nerves attract strikes. Even if no one hits your town, the secondary effects can still crush you. Debris from intercepts can fall. Emergency routes can be blocked. Evacuation becomes impossible because everyone else is evacuating too. You attempt a communication plan that assumes failure. You choose one out-of-area contact because local calls fail first. You send short texts. Inside, safe, will update in 2 hours. You do not call because voice eats bandwidth. You do not send photos because photos are luxury data. You treat your phone like a flare gun, not a toy. When people in your group chat start spamming theories, you mute it. Not because you don't care, because attention is a survival resource now. The geopolitical world continues in rooms you never see. Alliances meet under encrypted channels, deciding what collective defense means when the homeland is bleeding. Retaliatory strikes are discussed in terms of signaling and escalation ladders. Back channels try to find off-ramps. But the public won't see nuance. They will see the same recycled footage, the same vague updates, the same officials saying, "We are evaluating." That vagueness creates conspiracy. Conspiracy creates anger. Anger creates internal fractures, and fractures are another kind of attack. By week 1, the new normal has rules. Water becomes the core currency. Clean water is not only hydration. It is hygiene, morale, and disease prevention. You treat every container like it is precious. You use sealed sources when possible. You boil when you can. You ration without drama. Food becomes simple. You eat what spoils first. You avoid cooking smells that broadcast abundance. You keep trash minimized because trash attracts pests and pests bring illness. You discover that survival is boring when done correctly, and boredom is a gift. The prepared and the unprepared do not split cleanly by income. They split by discipline. Some wealthy households never stored a gallon of water. Some modest households have months of pantry staples. The difference is mindset. People who practice small routines now run routines under pressure. People who relied on perfect services now collapse into improvisation. The improvisation can be brave, but it is costly. Injury rates rise from simple things, falls in the dark, cuts from broken windows, carbon monoxide poisoning from indoor generators. The war kills through negligence as much as through weapons. You hear about safe states again, framed as escape routes. Friends talk about moving inland, moving rural, moving anywhere. But moving is exposure. Roads are uncertain. Bridges can be closed. Fuel can be unavailable. A car is not a shelter if traffic turns it into a parked box. In this environment, the first rule is shelter in place unless you have verified reason and a verified route. Most people do not have verified anything. They have a rumor and a full tank, and a full tank runs out. At some point you accept that the phrase "America will sacrifice" is not about martyrdom. It is about triage. Triage is brutal because it is rational under scarcity. It chooses the most survivable, the most strategically critical, the most time-sensitive. In a national crisis, triage happens at scales you cannot emotionally process. It happens to transformer replacements. It happens to fuel deliveries. It happens to hospital resupply. It happens to law enforcement reinforcement. It happens to which regions get air defense coverage. People in lower priority regions experience that as being thrown away. You also realize a darker truth. The adversary doesn't need to destroy America to change America. They only need to fracture confidence. They only need to make systems unreliable, long enough for people to turn on each other. A cyber strike that freezes payment rails for 3 days can trigger more chaos than a conventional strike on a warehouse. A sabotage event at a rail yard can ripple through food distribution across multiple states. A rumor about contamination can empty a city faster than sirens. The war is fought with kinetics, but also with psychology. And psychology is cheaper. Resolution does not arrive like a victory. It arrives like exhaustion. The pace of alerts slows. The air feels less electric, but the services do not bounce back like a switch. They return unevenly, with rationing and schedules and long lines. You learn what it means to live in intervals. Power 2 hours on, 4 hours off. Water available at certain times. Fuel sold by license plate. Medicine distributed through emergency clinics. Information released in controlled doses.